Welcome back, everyone, to the Share Your Why podcast. I'm here with my friend Daniela, who I've known for quite a while now. Really excited to dive into conversation with her today. Daniela, thank you so much for being here.
I'm super happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. I'll just quickly introduce Daniela and then we can dive into our conversation. Daniela has more than 15 years of artistic experience, more than 4 years of digital marketing experience. She's a multi-passionate singer, dancer, and marketing strategist, originally from Bogota, Colombia. She's a recent graduate of NC State University with a BS in marketing and currently works as a creative producer and social media manager for the CEO of 9miles Media, the company that we both work with. Some of her performance highlights include performing an acrobatic salsa routine at a TED Talk and also singing for the Vice President of Colombia alongside 115 Philharmonic musicians last summer. She's now working on her most ambitious project to date, building her own personal brand and her own artistic career with the purpose of sharing her love for Latin music with others and giving them magical butterflies, she says, with her electrifying bilingual songs. Incredibly excited to chat with Daniela today, talk to her about all sorts of new projects she's working on. We're going to kind of circle the conversations today around mindset work, limiting beliefs. We're going to talk about accountability, and we're going to talk about drive and motivation, which are all going to be really fun topics. Daniela, I'll hand it off to you. We'd love to hear just your entire story for a couple minutes. Feel free to take your time with it. We'd love to hear the entire thing.
Yay! I'm super happy to be here. So, my story starts in Bogota, Colombia. That's where I was born. And then I moved to another city called Medellin in Colombia as well, where I was raised until I was 17 years old. That's where I lived. My entire life, I was very passionate about dance, and I have been doing it for a really long time. I started when I was 7 years old. It was my passion since day one. I started doing a little bit of like contemporary ballet, more like traditional styles, and then transitioned into ballroom and Latin dance. And then when I was 17, in my last years of high school, we moved here as a family, and it was like a whole new experience for all of us. Growing up, I also went to a bilingual Catholic school, so I learned English since I was 7 years old, and that's why when I came here, I didn't have to really struggle with the language, which was awesome because I was able to communicate and create connections with many people. Once I was here, I finished high school and then started college, but also at the same time, I started dancing with a Latin dance company, and quickly I became the lead dancer, and then we started traveling all over the US, and that's when I got my first taste of being a professional dancer and being compensated for it. And I was like, oh, yeah, this is awesome. This is actually doable. So I went to school at NC State. I was a business major and graduated in May, held different leadership positions, and it was an awesome experience, honestly, to be able to study here, but also have the bicultural experience of my Latinx culture and American culture. Then I graduated in May, and I had the amazing opportunity to work with 9miles Media to create content and build the CEO's personal brand from scratch, something that they had never done before, and that was super exciting, but also a challenge for me since that was the first time I was doing it. I had to learn and do a lot of research on my own, but also experiment and have a lot of fun with it. Now I'm working on my personal brand and my artistic career, and that's been a lot of fun.
Yes, indeed. Thank you so much for sharing, Danielle. I really appreciate it. You left out the part about the fantastic 60-second video you uploaded alongside your application for 9miles.
Oh my God, yeah.
That was my first introduction to Daniela, was getting to watch this amazingly created 60-second video that we require for everybody who applies for an internship position. And she submitted probably the best one we've ever gotten.
Thank you.
For sure. Well, hey, thanks for sharing your story. And I'd love to hear, how has your why impacted your story? Like, would love to just hear you talk about that for a minute.
For years, I questioned my purpose because being a multi passionate artist and also growing up in a society that tells you you have to be one thing and then commit to it and then work on it and then retire and then be happy makes you think like, oh, maybe I'm not supposed to pursue multiple passions. So for me, that was what happened. That's what happened at the beginning. But then I realized that my purpose in life, my God given talent, is to be an artist and more generally like to create. Anything that's around music, dance, and marketing is my purpose. Creating content, creating art, creating harmonies, creating music around those three pillars is my purpose in life. And not just like creating it for my own personal satisfaction, but rather to help other people feel maripositas, butterflies, and connect with it in a way, or also learn more about what I do, or Latin music or Latin dance, because there's so much behind it that people don't really get to know. So if I could describe it in two words, it's create and share.
That's awesome. What has been kind of the process you've gone through to discover that for yourself? Like I know you've had your business coach you've been working with. Would love to hear more about that and just some of the mindset work you've been doing to kind of get to that point of figuring some of those things out.
This year, my life changed forever. And that was because for the first time, I decided to invest in myself. I call it my quote unquote big girl investment because it was an investment that I needed in my life and that took me out of a lot of limiting beliefs that I had. So I started working with a business coach, Fiona Flight, and she specializes in artists who are still in this like starving artist mindset. So she helps them with monetization, marketing, and mindset. I followed her like on social media for a couple of months and stuff. And then I was like, hey, let's like try it out. I really like her content. It's very valuable. She's an artist herself who became a profitable performer, a six-figure entrepreneur. So I decided to invest, kind of scared because I didn't know what I was getting myself into, like the level of accountability and the level of like mindset work that I was about to do. The first lesson was mindset, all about it. And that's when I realized how much people underestimate the power of mindset. To me, mindset is 90% of everything you do. If you're not in the right mindset, you're not going to accomplish what you want. That's when I first realized, oh man, I thought I was this like driven, like limitless person. And yes, I am. But I also have a lot of limiting beliefs that are not helping me get to the next level.
Yeah, for sure. Could you share a story about a major mindset shift you've been able to work through and how it kind of impacted you?
Believing that there's only one way I can be a profitable performer. You know, like the artist that goes like famous overnight or like X, Y, and Z. It was thinking, hey, I am capable of achieving this. I just need a plan and I need to believe it. Just because other people have not been able to see my value or appreciate it doesn't mean that other people out there are not able to. And from that came out my one of my affirmations that I actually have in front of me right here. That's I determine my own value. So I get to decide what my value is. I get to decide how much I charge. I get to decide what I want for myself. So the second one along those lines is my prices, my rates. I would say I doubled my rates, almost tripled my rates when I went through this mindset work. And not just because I'm like, oh, I'm like, now I'm better now, but because I realized how much value I was able to bring into, for example, a private dance lesson. By doing this, I also realized that hey, it's not that people are not willing to pay, but rather I need to find the people who either have the discretionary income or who see the value in me in order to buy my lessons or anything like that. The third one, I would say stepping into my greatness. Like I know it sounds very like Instagram quote kind of thing, but how I feel right now, like I wish more people could feel what I feel right now and how into my greatness I feel like I am right now. Not because I'm perfect, not because I don't have challenges or limiting beliefs, but because I know what I deserve, I know what I'm capable of, and I know that once there's limiting beliefs come my way, I have the mindset work in place to still remind myself of what I have to offer, how great I am, and how confident I am.
I love that. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. We're talking a lot about limiting beliefs and affirmations. Could you maybe just give a brief intro to that to everybody, and then I'd love to get into your reaction when I initially brought up the idea of the challenge team that we just finished up.
Of course. So I didn't know what a limiting belief was until, I mean, I kind of knew, we all kind of know, but I didn't really know what it was until he started working with Fiona. So pretty much it's something that doesn't let you think bigger or that makes you feel something that you're not. So for example, I'm ugly, to put it like in simple terms, or if I go to a social gathering, no one's gonna like me. Like things like that that are in our head and that we somehow end up believing it to the point that it becomes like our core belief without even knowing. So that's a limiting belief. We went through a couple of questions to analyze that limiting belief and then turn it into an affirmation. It's four questions, and the first one is it true? So, is the limiting belief true? The second one is, can you absolutely know that it's true? The third one is, how do you react or feel when you believe this thought? The fourth one is, who and what would I be without that thought? And then the last one is evidence, which I think is so important that you provide evidence for yourself or ask other people to give you evidence. And it's not just like, oh, no, you're not this, you're not that. It's more of like, this is exactly why I think you are able to connect with other people at a social gathering. This is exactly why I think you're able to X, Y, and Z.
So just for a little bit of context, like when you originally told me about that concept of limiting beliefs and affirmations, it really struck me as something that like, wow, I have so many of those. Like I definitely need to go through that exercise. And then of course it was one of those things where I was like, oh, I know I should do it and I need to do it, but like, I never really got around to it. And so I finally got tired of making excuses like that and just decided to put together a little, Zoom accountability group where these little challenge groups were doing, and had an opportunity to invite you to come join the group. So I'm curious, like, what was kind of your initial reaction when I invited you, and then what's kind of been your experience? We've been doing it for about a week now, and seeing all sorts of really cool things happen.
My initial reaction was, oh my God, someone else is obsessed with limiting beliefs and affirmations as I am. Because I feel like I believe in it so much that it made me super happy to not only be able to inspire someone else to do it, but also to have an accountability group that could provide that motivation to keep doing the mindset work. Because mindset work is really mentally exhausting and physically exhausting too. So that made me super happy. And just being part of the accountability group has been really inspiring, and also realizing that we all have similar beliefs, similar limiting beliefs. And I think from that came out the quote that we said, the most personal is the most universal. It's so true.
I can definitely identify with that. So many things that I find that oftentimes we are too reserved to share with other people, or we only share with the people really close to us, or, at least in the same ballpark as what other people are facing, some of the challenges they're going through. So we can really take the time to share those out with people in a really honest and transparent and vulnerable way. Oftentimes we can find common ground, even with people we might not think we would be able to. So no, I really appreciate you sharing that. As part of the challenge team, like what were some of the things you were most surprised by? What sort of affirmations, what sort of limiting beliefs were people coming up with? And what kind of took you by surprise?
One of the limiting beliefs that I like the most, which I think a lot of people can relate to, was one of the members said that he finds himself comparing himself to other people on social media. And then immediately like other members said like, "Oh my God, me too, me too, me too." And he said that one of the things that he realized after doing the work was that he kept comparing himself to other people because he felt that by, let's say, that other person having the best body, like the thriving business, like all these things, he wasn't going to have access to that. So it was coming from a scarcity mindset of like, oh, if this person has this, I'm not going to be able to achieve it.
Yeah. So then what were some of the new beliefs that people came up with on the other side of that?
For that one, someone else's wins doesn't keep me from winning, which I think is really powerful. In a society where we are always like trying to be the best and be the richest and like the most beautiful and X, Y, and Z, it's really important that we realize that there's room for everyone and you have your own path, and whatever that is going to be there for you. It's meant to be there for you. So it's okay if you don't have it right now. It's okay if you don't have what you want right now. Like, if it's meant to be, it will happen. And someone else's ability to have it at the moment doesn't keep you from winning either now or in the future.
Yeah, I love that. It's like that abundance mindset, right?
Mm-hmm.
The idea that everybody has access to so much, and there's such a huge pool out there, and we can all have success. There's no need for it to be a huge competition. Everybody can bring everybody else up. I love that. So when you talk about investing in yourself, I think that's a language that a lot of people probably aren't very used to. They look at something like a personal coach or a business coach, something like that. They're like, wow, it looks expensive. Tell me kind of how you came to that conclusion and why you kind of use that language of investing in yourself.
I think anything you do for yourself in your benefit is an investment. So it doesn't matter if it's financial or emotional or physically. We need to make that a more universal concept. What a beautiful thing it is to invest in yourself. What a beautiful thing it is to take yourself on that picnic date that you wanted to go with this other person, or to go solo traveling, or to give yourself that little gift that you wanted for so long. And in my case, it was to invest in my future. So I saw it as like a long-term investment that was going to give me the results right now. That limiting belief of like, oh my God, like I can't pay for this, or am I going to make my money back? Because there are a lot of fears behind an investment of that amount. So, what I mean by investing in myself in that moment was to honestly take that leap of faith. And I'm going to do this that I have never done in my life before, which is invest in a business coach and see what happens, and then see what changes in me. What you pay for really is a transformation. To me, it's not the business coach, it's not the personal brand of the business coach, is the transformation. I can confidently say that I have gone through one of the biggest, if not the biggest transformation of my life.
It's great to hear. Has the accountability played a big role there? And how do you kind of think about accountability in your life?
We have weekly coaching calls, but also she has this app called Voxer. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but it's like a voice messaging app. I love voice messages. If you know me and we're texting, I'm not going to send you a text. I'm either going to send you a voice message or I'm going to call you. So this app is awesome. And something that we created into our like relationship was to make it part of my morning routine. So I'm like, hey, today I did my meditation, or I did this, and that, and this is my plan for the day. And that has really helped me not only like get the most out of my coaching, but also check in with her and have access to her energy. Because that's also a big part of it. You having access to your coaches or whatever energy has a price, and it's very valuable. So that Voxer has been huge, because every time I have a limiting belief, I have her in my pocket. I have my coach in my pocket, and I can just like Vox her and we can talk about that. And for me, it's also calendar blocking. Like we set our goals, and then I'm like, okay, now I need to block the time in my calendar to actually achieve this. Because if I just say, oh yeah, I'm going to do this, I'm going to produce this piece of content, blah, 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 by the end of the week, I'm like, if I didn't put it on my calendar.
Yeah, I have a friend of mine, and we just kind of text back and forth at like certain times on certain weekdays, just checking in, like, hey, what are you working on? What are you working on? Making sure we're kind of holding each other accountable. I think even for people who don't have the resources to go out and find an entire coach and everything, like having that accountability with somebody else is the strongest form of accountability you can, because you just don't want to let somebody else down. You don't want to you don't want to fall back on something you said you're going to do. 100%. Daniela, I'd love to hear your thought on drive and motivation. Like ever since I met you, just to give you a compliment for a second, I mean, it just was immediately clear that your drive was off the charts. And I could just tell that because like, this was somebody I could look at, I was just like, wow, she is going to go wherever she wants to go. And that's awesome, right? But I'm curious, like, where do you think that comes from? Are there things you've done in your life that have helped you to kind of get in that mindset? Because I know there's a lot of people I've talked to who just feel like sometimes, the drive is like in one day and out the other, or they feel like they might just not be a very motivated person. That's a pretty debilitating, limiting belief for sure. And I know I felt thoughts like that before too. So I'd love to hear your thought on that.
Thank you so much. So, my entire life, I have always accomplished everything I have put my mind on. And I say it now confidently because I look back and I'm like, oh my God, what? But it wasn't just because, oh, I have the perfect drive, because I'm perfect, because I'm so responsible. Like, no, I love to procrastinate. Like, now I'm a little bit more organized and, all of that. But I was comfortable with like procrastinating and then catching up in that way. But what always kept me going was believing that what my biggest dream was at the moment was going to come to me. In that way, I do believe that faith played a big part. And when I say faith, I don't mean religion, I don't say a specific God. We actually like to call it source with my coach. Like whatever that source is to you, that could be your mom, that could be your dog, like that could be God, whatever that is, whatever name, even if it's your intuition, if it's your mindset, that's your source. So it's always thinking that big dream or X, Y, and Z goal that you have is going to come, but also putting in the work and then believing that that thing is going to it's going to come to you because it's meant for you. Is thinking that what's meant to be for me is going to come to me, even if it's now or tomorrow or in 10 years, like it is going to happen. And that's okay. And we have to be patient in the process. But also, you need to let go of people and energies that are not serving you in your life. You always know when your intuition is telling you something. When you know, like, this person is not good for you. And it's not just like in relationships, it's in friendships, even in family relationships, right? There are people who are not serving you, they're not supporting you, or they're making you believe that what you want to accomplish is not possible. And you need to limit the time you spend with those people. Because when you want to achieve something that's out of this world, that not your average person is accomplishing, you need an out of this world mindset that's going to help you get there. So be careful with like the people you're surrounding yourself with, but also don't play it safe. I feel like now is the time for us to take risks. We don't have a partner, like a husband and wife or a partner. We don't have kids. We don't have like all these responsibilities that are going to come later in life. So we need to take those risks, because if we don't take them now, then in 10 years it's going to be too late.
100%. It's easy to talk about all the good stuff, all the great achievements and everything, but I'd love to hear just maybe a story of a difficult situation or period or something that's happened for you recently or in your life, and kind of how that impacted you and how it impacted your story.
So when I first started college, I started as a dance major at Meredith. I was a dance and business double major. And then I had an injury, an ankle injury. Even now I'm still like recovering from like fully. At that time, I wanted to be a full-time dancer, a professional dancer, similar to what I'm pursuing right now, but it includes like singing and performing as well. And at the time, that's all I wanted. Like you said, my drive, my focus was there. And that's all I wanted. And I invested my time, my energy. And when I had that injury, I had to stop taking classes, like dance classes. I went through a stage of my life where I questioned my purpose. And if that's what I should be doing, because I was having that injury, because I couldn't fully major in it. And I was really sad also because dancing is a physical activity and it also benefited my mental health. Very important for me to stay like in that high vibe mindset, but also physical state. So I didn't want to dance anymore. And I told myself that I wasn't going to dance at all. I was going to pursue marketing. I had to go through that in order to realize that even if I want to, I have to dance. Like, dance is my purpose. And sometimes we deny ourselves our purpose just because we either don't believe it or we feel like we can't accomplish it. So we silence that voice of like, oh, no, no, this is not my purpose. This is just a hobby. Or like, no, 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 this is too hard. No, that's your purpose. Even if you try to silence it, even if you try to ignore it, it's going to come to you. Even if it's now or in 3 or in 5, 10 years, that's your purpose and you should go with it, because everyone has a purpose in life and everyone's here to serve it. And so if you're doubting your purpose, if you're silencing it, maybe do some like mindset work, have some time to reflect and think that it's your purpose. Don't ignore it.
Yeah, that's fantastic advice. I appreciate it. I'd love to ask, for my purpose, learning from you, but also for everybody listening, like, what is one major action we could take away from today? What is one big thing we could do that you think would really have an impact?
If you didn't have to worry about money, like let's say if you want to be a millionaire, right? That's your goal, like your financial goal. If you were a millionaire today, what would you be doing? If you had all the money in the world and you never had to worry about it, what would you be doing?
Great.
So I would ask or suggest that everyone thinks about that question, and whatever that answer is, like really pay attention to it because that's what you enjoy doing the most. So even though you think you don't have one, by answering that question, you're going to realize, hey, actually, this is what would make me the happiest in the world.
I think what that challenges for a lot of us is the idea of like enjoying the journey along the way.
Yes.
Yeah, has that kind of idea of enjoying the journey been a big part of it for you? And how do you kind of think about that?
My way of capturing that is documenting. So with my iPhone, actually, I have a good story to share. Last night, couldn't go to sleep. And I've heard a lot about like that when you're like source or like your intuition's trying to like get you on that creative mode, inspiration mode, it's hard for you to go to sleep, but also you wake up like in the middle of the night thinking about creative ideas. So many ideas came to me like in the middle of the night that I had to wake up to write them down. And then I felt this like need to document it, to record a video of me like saying what just happened. And I did. And I thought it was so corny. Like after I watched, I was like, oh, I know. Like this is like so funny. But it's all about that. It's about documenting those small wins. And I'm big in that too. Celebrating small and big wins. Even if that is, hey, today I meal prepped for the week. Like that's a win. Do not underestimate your wins. Every single win is taking you closer to whatever goal it is. So you have to document the journey in whatever way it's for you, the journaling, like video, voice messages, and also enjoy it. Celebrate those wins and celebrate them for yourself. Don't wait for other people to recognize that. Yeah, that's nice, but you also have to be your biggest fan. If not, then you're going to get to like the finish line and it's going to be like not you're not going to be happy because you're going to be waiting for validation from other people.
Wow, that is gold, Daniela. I appreciate it. You know, something I've really struggled about when you talk about, celebrating wins, just like the logical part of my brain is always that, okay, so if I'm going to be celebrating wins and celebrating when I have, external validation or when good things happen, then, should I also care when things don't go my way or, when things don't quite come together? Like there's that quote I've been trying to live by that's don't care about something that's not going to matter in 5 years for more than 5 minutes, right? And I love that quote, but it's almost like, okay, but if I am going to care about the external validation on the good side, then it feels like it would be natural that I would care about it on the bad side, when things don't go well or when you get negative feedback from somebody. So I'm curious to hear your thought there.
As someone who is a positive person or is considered to be a positive person, for a long time, I used to see those quote unquote negative emotions like sadness or like anger or hate as like, oh no, they don't belong in my life. Like, no, I'm a positive person. I have to be confident. I have to be happy all the time. And actually, it wasn't until I met Fiona that she told me, hey, you have to embrace your emotions. Like, if one day you're sad, if one day you're disappointed, and if one day you're like angry, you have to feel it, even if it's for 1 second. You have to tell yourself, I am so fudging angry and I hate X, Y, and Z. I'm sad about this. My day did not go as expected. This is what went wrong, and I'm so mad about it. And you have to embrace those feelings too. Just because they are not happy and doesn't mean that they're bad. One of the biggest lessons for me this year is to embrace anger and sadness and hate the same way I embrace happiness. Because if you don't feel it, they're going to pile up. And then once they explode, it's going to be horrible.
Yeah, that's a really interesting perspective. I haven't heard that one before. That's really cool. So then, let's say you really feel it for a sec. Do you have any techniques then for like how long do you let that thought linger? Like to what extent do you try and control it? And do you try to get back to like a neutral state or back to a positive state?
There is this thing called the emotional guidance scale. It pretty much takes you through like different stages. So just to give you an example, the first one is fear, grief, depression, despair, powerlessness. And so you go from like those feelings all the way to, let's say, anger, doubt, frustration. Then you keep going to contentment, hopefulness, optimism, and then you just keep scaling up. But pretty much you sit down with your thoughts, and you can do this by journaling or doing voice messages. Once you read through each feeling, then you start labeling it. And sometimes what keeps us from voicing our feelings or like identifying them is our inability to label them. Like, hey, if I'm angry at Susie, I'm going to be angry at her. So it's like, I'm angry at X, Y, and Z because of X, Y, and Z. It's always really important that you label and you put emphasis on what's bothering you. And then at the end, you usually end in like hopefulness or positivity or like things like that. There isn't a timeline, like there isn't a specific like timestamp for each feeling. It could take days, it could take 1 hour, it could take 30 minutes. As long as you feel like you're going through it at your own pace, then it's going to feel good for you.
Yeah, no, I definitely want to check that out. And it relates back to something I talked to one of my mentors, Gareth, about on the second podcast I did. He was bringing up the idea of like when something makes you feel uncomfortable or when you feel anger or hate or, any of those things, to rather than kind of running away from it, to like really absorb it and like dive into it and try and figure out where it's coming from and like try to kind of surround yourself with it from maybe like, hey, where is this coming from? And try and get to the root of it. I think that's something that's definitely helped me a lot.
I'm curious to know, what are the three biggest feelings, emotions you usually run away from?
That's a great question. Probably, let's see, worry and just like feelings of discomfort and conflict. And then I might run away a little bit from the good stuff, not trying to get too caught up in how well things are going.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe because I think, oh, they might not be going well forever, or because I just don't want to be too prideful.
We as human beings, we're scared of being perceived as too much because we have always been told to play it safe, to be average. So when we are more than that, it's like, wait, wait, wait. No, I should keep this to myself.
No, it is fascinating. We were talking about during the challenge group as well. Like a lot of times you'll hear from people like, oh no, just like enjoy these years, enjoy when you're younger. Like, don't feel
Mm-hmm.
like you need to like put yourself under any crazy pressure or anything. And then looking back on it, you might realize that a lot of times the people who are giving that sort of advice are the people who, oftentimes very subconsciously just don't want you to go out and achieve anything more than they did because then they're validating their own path in life. And it's very subconscious most of the time. It's not like they don't want the best for you, but it's just like that they would struggle to see if you went out and did something that was,
Mm-hmm.
so much deeper, so much bigger. And so that might be why they give you that advice.
Wow. Yeah, that's so powerful. There's a quote that says, don't take criticism from someone you wouldn't take advice from. That to me is like, it resonated with me when I heard it. I'm like, heck to the yes. I'm not going to take feedback or constructive criticism from someone who is not going to help me grow. And you know this, I love feedback. I really, really enjoy when people give feedback on what I'm doing, right, and what I could improve upon. But don't take advice from people that are not where you want to be.
I absolutely love that. This is awesome, Daniela. Thank you so much for coming on today. Where can people find out more about you and about some of the new exciting projects you're working on? I know you're working on a podcast, and if you want to tell everybody about that for a second, but where can people find you?
I am so happy to share this with you and to be part of this podcast. I feel super honored to be part of your journey and to share my journey with other people as well. So, I am on social media on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, YouTube as Daniela X Patino. Soon, I will be launching a brand new podcast. It's going to be all about my passion for Latin music and how you can connect with it. Interesting facts. I'm going to bring really knowledgeable and cool guests. So, be on the lookout for that. I'm so excited to share that part of my journey with other people as well. I call myself a salsa nerd because I love to learn about the culture and the history. So you're going to see a lot of that as part of the podcast.
So exciting. I love it. Well, hey, let me know any ways I can help you out as you're going through the process. And I've been learning so much, even just by doing this a few times. So it's an exciting process just being out there and trying to share your story in a really authentic and really honest way. And also to learn from other people you might bring on. So I'm really excited for you.
Thank you so much. And before we leave, I would like to ask you one question.
Of course.
What's the most exciting affirmation you have now on your wall?
In our challenge group, I came up with an affirmation that just really felt right for me. And it was based on this limiting belief that I had that I would always feel bad and feel this like negative physical gut reaction and also just negative mental reaction whenever I was in conflict with other people around me or whenever I was getting negative feedback from other people, that sort of thing. or even just if people, somebody made a little comment that they thought something I was doing wasn't really the right thing or something like that, it would always just give me this really negative gut reaction, and it still does. But the affirmation I kind of came up with on the other side of that was this idea that, I will be aware of what other people think and their opinions and their thoughts and their emotions, but those do not define me. What defines me is me. I get to choose how I feel. I get to choose what to let in and what to not. And I get to choose what my mindset's going to be at any given time. And just the fact that I can direct my thoughts back towards the things that I can control and not focus on the things that I can't control. So that was really exciting for me. I've had it up on the mirror for a couple of days. It's definitely been making a difference.
Absolutely. I love this. Thank you so much. I love learning from you and to count with your support. That has been very important for the past couple of months for me. So thank you for providing this space for other people to learn as well.
Of course. That's what it's all about, learning from each other. Thank you so much, Daniela. I really appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in for this week's episode. And we'll talk to you again soon.